Hey guys, my name is Paul. I'm with Under the Radar Brewing. I'm here to talk to you on Teach It Tuesday about how to make beer and what craft beer is. I think a lot of people want to know what craft beer is in relation to what mass-produced beer is, and I would kind of define that as the level of attention and the lack of what we call adjuncts in brewing. A lot of big brewers will use just to save money, save time, and make it in consistency. Can use kind of engineered materials to create more beer faster, which is fine. Like everybody likes Bud Light, you grew up on it. It's not a bad beer just because they use some adjuncts. That's fine. But I think a lot of craft brewers shy away from that and try to keep it down to the four main ingredients, which are grain, hops, water, and yeast. So today we're making a batch of Kolsch, which is a light German-style lager beer, and I was going to walk you around the process. So right now, this morning when we started, we took our mash tun, which is a 10-barrel mash tun. If you imagine, so we brew on a 10-barrel system. What that means is that if you imagine a normal-sized keg of beer, we're making about 20 of these at a time, which is a little over 300 gallons of beer, if everything goes the way we plan for it to. The mash tun this morning we filled up with some water that we regulated the chemistry on a little bit. We took the City of Houston water, but we treated it a little bit with a variety of chemicals, sodium, magnesium, just to kind of get a chemical level that we were happy with to maximize our grain output. But we took our grain, which is malted barley, this isn't malted barley, but this is our grain that we use. Basically what we want out of this is sugar. So when you hear the word malted, somebody took this grain off the stalk, got it warm with warm water, and then heated it up in a kiln, and basically convinced the grain that it was time to germinate. So if it was in nature, all that sugar would come out to the top, right before it released into the air, and it would go fly away in the wind and go create some new plants. Basically, somebody started that process here, but then they warmed it up to stop it. So this grain, if you were to bite into it, is very, very sweet. We want to take all that sugar out of it. So I filled this guy up with about 600 pounds of grain and water at a specific temperature, and I let it sit for a while. And basically, you can imagine we've made tea out of it. So the different kinds of grain we use add a different color content. But I'm also cooking that sugar out, and with that hot water, some of those the enzymes in the sugar are kind of converting, and the starches are converting. So we're maximizing our output. That sugar is really, really important because otherwise, if we don't have enough, we're not going to have any alcohol, and there's no point drinking beer if you don't have any alcohol. So we were doing that, or we did that this morning. Now we are actually transferring it from our mash tun to our brewing kettle, which, as you can see right here, we're about halfway down. So now we're it's about halfway through the transfer, and once this guy's full, we've been watching the sugar content. So I'm actually putting in more hot water as I'm sucking it out. So I want that sugar content to drop a little bit, so that I can kind of create extra volume, but then still get plenty of good active sugar to use. So we're going to take the gravity reading. So the gravity is the way we know how much sugar is in the wort. And again, as I'm rinsing water through on its way to the brew kettle, I need to keep track of that that sugar levels. It's going to be dropping. It's fine, that's what I want, but I've got to keep it within certain levels. So now we're going to take a little sample of it. This little guy is called a refractometer. Coming right along, looking good.
Okay, so this is sugary water, and it is the base for what the beer is going to be, and I'm gonna give it a try. It is pretty hot, so we'll see how it goes. Let's see. Oh, it is just like sugary water. That's really cool. No, thank you. It's a pretty cool process.
So once this guy's full, I'm I'm going to turn on the heating on, and I'm going to boil this for about an hour, hour and a half or so, depending on what my sugar content is. The boiling is really important. It's going to sterilize that. The sugary water is called worts. So right now, when it's boiling, we're going to sterilize the worts. If there's any bad guys in there, that's going to cook off. But I'm also going to start putting in hops. So if you imagine that this thing is just full of sugary water, hops are come from the hop plant, obviously. They have a little powder inside of the hops called a lupulin, and that lupulin is kind of a bittering agent. So if you imagine that this is super sweet, I need something bitter to back it off. Otherwise, it's just going to be, overly sweet, kind of a cloying liquid. Sometimes we use hops early on, and that's going to add to some bitterness. Sometimes we add hops very late in the boil. That'll add some more aromatic character to it. But it's basically going to help define the beer and make it a little bit more complex as we're cooking the sugar down and refining it. So it's important to get that bitter in to level it out a little bit. Once this is done, we're going to do what's called whirlpooling. So I'm going to hook up some hoses, I'm going to spin all the liquid in here, and it's going to take all the solids, any hops that didn't break down, any extra grain that made it through that wasn't supposed to. It's going to spin around and sit in the center of the vessel and clarify the liquid a little bit, because you don't want a bunch of grains and funky hops in your beer. Once that's level, let it sit, kind of cool out a little bit, and then we're going to transfer it over. During that transfer process, we're going, you imagine that this wort is just shy of boiling temperature, so it's about 200 degrees, but I need to get it into a fermenter, but it needs to be about 68 degrees before that happens. But I only have a little bit of space to get that, to cool that off. So essentially, I'm running that hot liquid through a heat exchanger. This is pushing that hot liquid in and then pushing cold wort out into the fermenter. At the same time, there's some water coming in that's picking up the heat, and we're putting that back into our vessel with the mash in it, and we can use that to clean, so a little bit more energy efficient. And all those grains that were in there before have already been taken out, and we give them to a local farmer to feed his cows. So next time you're having a burger, you can probably take some local beer brewer for the delicious meat. Once it gets into the fermenter, we're going to pitch the yeast. Yeast is gets in there and eats sugar. The byproduct of that sugar is, or the byproduct of that process of eating sugar is alcohol and CO2. So we're making the alcohol, we're taking away some of that sweetness, we're watching the gravity in here drop, and then we're letting the CO2 kind of bleed off a little bit. Once we hit our target that we're looking to get to, we'll stop the process by crashing it. So that means that we make the wort really, really cold, and all that yeast falls to the bottom of this cone vessel here. And then we can extract it and use it for additional brews if it's still healthy enough. After that, we'll let it sit for about a week or so, just kind of mellow out, get cool. We'll move it over to a bright keg, and then from there, or bright tank rather, and then from there we'll start reintroducing carbs. Because basically we have it's beer at this point because it's been fermented. There's alcohol in it. The alcohol is going to be there, but it's basically just flat beer. So we need to get CO2 into it so that it's something that you actually want to drink. So that's what these hoses are. We're pushing CO2 into it. It's got a little carb stone that shoots beer gas all throughout the beer and gets it nice and churned up and carbonates. We do that for a few days, and then after that, we start pegging it off and send it to you guys. Under the Radar Brewing is in Midtown, right at the corners of Alameda, and we're one block south of West Alabama. We've been here for about 4 years. We opened with a bunch of traditional kind of German style beers. We did a Radar Love, which is a German style Hefeweizen. Our Midtown Bock is a very traditional Bock. We had a English IPA and a blonde ale called Dirty Blonde. We still make all those beers, and they're really good. The IPA is going to transition from a English style to more of a West Coast style beer. But we've also added about 15 beers to our lineup. So we make everything from the light lager that we're going to make today, the Kolsch, to some big roasty beers. And we also just took part in the Black is Beautiful initiative from the guys at Weathered Souls, and in partnership with Hop Topic World. But for that, we made a coffee porter. It's really nice and roasty, and we'll be donating the proceeds to that to 100 Black Men, which is a local organization in Houston, to help at-risk men and develop mentorships for the African American community. So we're super excited to take part in that. We've also started barrel aging beer, so that's kind of a new project for us. And so we were as crafty as could be. We were home brewers that started in the garage, and we've been slowly kind of building our skill level and trying new stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's always fun. And at the end of the day, we always have beer, so that's, you can't go wrong with that. I'm a hoppy guy, so I think our IPA is my favorite one. But I would say that our Midtown Bach is probably a solid number 2. It's just a great, easy, approachable beer. I would start off with probably the Cola Coleslaw we're making today, but our Bach is really nice too. If you want to try something that's crafty but don't want to go, don't go crazy, then that one's really nice. You can also, our Dirty Blonde Ale is a relatively hoppy blonde ale, but not overly so. So you can kind of start to figure out what you like about beers that way. It's got some nice sweet character left over from the brewing process, but it does have that nice hop profile. So it's a nice, well-rounded beer where you get a lot of flavor, a lot of activity going on in the pint glass, but it doesn't have to be a 10% double dry hopped anything, So it's nice. During COVID, we're open 12 to 8 every single day. We're doing to-go out of the brewery right now. We sell 17-ounce bottles individually in 4-packs. We also do 22-ounce bombers for all of our beers in growlers, which is a 64-ounce container. We also sell to a lot of different bars and restaurants. Unfortunately, bars aren't open right now, but you can always ask around for us at your favorite restaurant or bar, and we're on tap.